Hi everyone, this is Technical Comprehension lesson for Monday, March 23rd. I am trying a different program, a different application to record my lectures, so you won't see me in my bedroom in the background for this one. I'm going to see if I like this application better. So for Monday, March 23rd, just a reminder, due tonight by 10 o'clock is your Chapter 6 vocabulary quiz. So I'm already in the Chapter 6 folder. Here's our Chapter 6 vocabulary quiz. There it is. You download it. I've only had a couple of you turn it in so far. And I know I've touched base with more of you than that, so I'm hoping maybe the rest of you are going to be submitting that tonight. So here's our Chapter 6 quiz. Remember, you are just either typing or printing out in handwriting and sending me pictures, or you're typing and uploading, whatever is most comfortable for you. The correct or incorrect, short answer, and then for multiple choice, you can just highlight your answer. So that's the quiz, and then if you are, in fact, typing and putting it into a Dropbox, the Dropbox is right underneath that, where you would click, browse your computer, find where you saved it, click open, and then submit. So Chapter 6 vocabulary quiz due 10 o'clock this evening, which is Monday, March 23rd. All right. So as scheduled for today, what I would normally be going over is your final project. I'm just going to remind you, this was in our last video, but I'm just going to remind you, you are still doing a final project. So in your course content folder in Blackboard, there is a final project folder. As I mentioned, the original directions are there just for a source of comparison, and then there are the revised project directions. So when you open that up, here's our final project. You'll see it still looks familiar, although I did just make a couple adjustments, couple notes, especially the point values. Part 3 is the one that has the biggest change because I really cut out a lot of Part 3. And then Parts 4 and 5, just a little adjustment in terms of mostly like the paragraph length and the fact that you don't have to like attach anything anymore because we're not going to worry about that. So it's down to 30 points. It was 50 points, so I didn't want to put it as heavily. I did already upload a video pertaining to Part 3, reminding you how to find your scholarly article. So that is in Blackboard. I will kind of pull that up for you too. As soon as I find it. So many videos. Here we go. It's in the course video folder. Scholarly articles through the digital library. It's like a 5-minute video, just reminding you how to get access to those. So it is in the Monday, Wednesday class videos. I will eventually start organizing this as we get more videos into like week 9, week 10, week 11, and so on, so that there's not so many videos listed here. So that's just a final project reminder. And then I will kind of touch base with you as we get a little bit closer. Okay, so originally on our schedule today on our syllabus is Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is nice because it's based on something we've already talked about in a way, implied main ideas, finding the main ideas of what paragraphs where the author has not directly stated their main idea. And then something that we're building on now, a central point, also known as a thesis statement. So I'm going to go through, we're going to talk about the concepts in Chapter 7. We are going to do some of our text sheet. We're going to get all of our vocabulary, and we're going to do a practice with thesis statements. So there is quite a bit, so this may be a little bit of a longer video again, upwards of an hour. So I apologize. I appreciate those of you who are able to listen, or maybe you're just listening to certain parts. Hopefully you find these helpful. All right, so Chapter 7, we're talking about implied main ideas and central point or thesis statements. So as a reminder, an implied main idea, imply means to hint or suggest. So an implied main idea is a main idea that is not directly stated, but it is suggested by the details, meaning the author has given you clues, hints, information, and then your job as a reader is to come to a conclusion, to infer what that is. So it's still a very similar process that we've talked about all along with finding main ideas. You find the topic, that one word or phrase the paragraph is about. Who or what is this about? Then what are you being taught about that topic? What is the author trying to teach you about that particular topic? Then you summarize and you put it into a general sentence. Remember, main ideas and implied main ideas, doesn't matter if they're directly stated or implied, are general. They often use those cheat words we've talked about in class, many, various, several, and they cover everything that's found in the paragraph. So when you think you've found your main idea, you simply ask yourself, okay, is a whole paragraph about this? If I were to turn this main idea into a question, does the rest of the paragraph answer that question? And if you can find that, yep, that fits, then you're more than likely on the right track and you found your implied main idea. So that's a review because we already kind of talked about this concept. So I'm going to go ahead and get into our textbook now. So chapter 7 is implied main idea and central point. We're just for right this moment talking about implied main ideas. We're going to get to central point here in a little bit. Chapter 7's content area is the arts and related fields. Now, this would probably fit, Kimmy, you would kind of fit into this category very vaguely, I guess, because culinary is, a little bit more of an art. Some people, culinary arts, obviously. The rest of us, this may not be quite as fitting. However, we've all, I'm assuming, have been to a movie theater. We have gone to maybe a theme park. We have watched TV. So that's what kind of makes it seem like, okay, we can all kind of relate to this. So I encourage you to read that intro there that talks about the arts and the related fields. So just going to click over here. This next couple of pages goes over what we just talked about in our PowerPoint, what an implied main idea is. It's not directly stated, but it's suggested, and it goes over some ways to get to your implied main idea, as well as some example paragraphs, which I encourage you to read if you need to, or if you would like to get a little extra practice. Okay, and this is, again, a little extra practice, but we're actually going to go down to practice number 1 on page 264. And I'll read some of these with you. I will not do the longer readings, but I don't mind doing these smaller practice readings with you. So practice 1 on Walt Disney at the bottom of page 264. Walt Disney was born in 1901 and began taking night courses at the Chicago Art Institute when he was a freshman in high school. He was the cartoonist for his school newspaper until World War I broke out when he was 16. He served 3 years in the war and then returned home and worked as an advertising artist with his brother. After an unsuccessful attempt with their own company, Walt went back into advertising where he met Fred Harmon and began making animated cartoons in Kansas City. Although his animated cartoons were popular, this company also failed due to poor management. Next, Walt and Roy Disney moved to Hollywood to start the Disney Brothers studio, where he began producing animated cartoons with characters. When they lost the rights to one of his most popular characters, Oswald the Rabbit, the Disney Brothers found themselves once more at the bottom. But Walt did put his pen to paper, and with the help of another animator, created Mortimer Mouse, later renamed Mickey Mouse. The rest is history. So, how many of you knew that Mortimer Mouse was Mickey Mouse's original name, right? We learn something new every day. So when I read this, something that sticks out to me is the fact that this company failed. They lost the rights to this character. So it doesn't sound like Walt Disney had an easy go of things at all. So if we look at the questions that go along with this, what is the topic of this particular paragraph? And again, this is where I encourage you to maybe pause in between me asking this question so you can answer on your own to get practice, and then resume and I'll be going over the answers. So hopefully the topic you can pick on, we know has something to do with Walt Disney, but specifically A, the beginnings. It's talking about kind of the steps he took to get where we know now when he was eventually successful. What do the major details describe? Well, it definitely didn't talk about why he was successful, because it talked a lot about his failures, actually. And it didn't necessarily talk about his influences of art. It's more about his background experience, C, about how he really did a lot of failing before he succeeded, and so that background that they give. And then the implied main idea, the main idea that's not directly stated. If you look at your options there, hopefully you can see that B is our answer. Walt Disney experienced failures before becoming successful. Even though they didn't necessarily talk terribly much about his success, it kind of ends with the rest is history. We know that he was successful, so it focused a lot on his failures. All right, so I'm going to skip to practice 3 now, over on page 366. So practice 3 on page 366. We're also going to practice this with implied mean ideas. In the late 1800s, New Orleans was a thriving seaport that drew people from all around the world. Everywhere in the city was filled with many different styles of music from various cultures. Bands were very popular, and almost everyone played an instrument, even those who couldn't read music. Band music was one of the first musical influences on early jazz. Another popular style of music was ragging. This means playing a melody in an offbeat style. Ragging had its roots in Africa and developed into ragtime, another influence on early jazz. A third influence on jazz was the blues. The blues came from early African American spiritual music and followed a simple 4-chord pattern. Jazz developed from these 3 styles of music, using the offbeat rhythms of ragtime, the melodies and instruments of band music, and the feel of the blues. Okay. So this is another example where the main idea is implied, and so we have to determine what that is. So first we need to figure out the topic. Often people want to go to music while they are talking about music. That's way too broad. It's talking about a specific type of music. So then people want to go with D, and yes, it is talking about jazz, but even more specifically, it's talking about C, the influences of jazz. And they do talk about those influences throughout the entire paragraph. So what are the major details? Describe, well, 1 basically answered 2 for us. The styles of music that influence jazz, D. And then the implied main idea, if we know the topic is jazz and that we're talking about the influences on jazz and the styles of music that influence jazz, if you look at your 4 choices for number 3, D is our best answer. The history of jazz shows that it developed from 3 styles of music. And it basically says that in so many words there in the paragraph, right there. So, and you could also go back and say, okay, it was ragtime, it was blues, so it does talk about that. So those are examples of some implied main ideas in context. Now, I'm not going to go over this one with you, but again, if there's ever a reading that you want to do on your own and answer the questions and you want to see how you did, always feel free to send those to me and I can give you some feedback. But for now, I'm going to keep going. And on page 268, it talks more about, again, like the difference between stated main ideas and implied main ideas. Stated main idea is when the author has basically done the work for you, meaning they have given you the sentence that can be used as the main idea, versus implied main idea is when they simply hint or suggest or give you some clues, details, suggestions, and then you as a reader have to put them into your own words. So we will do a couple more examples together now. If you look over at page 271, I'm skipping practice 4 here, although again, you are more than welcome to try it on your own. Email me, text me, call me, whatever you want, and I can give you, feedback. But we're going to skip to practice number 5 for now. All right, so the paragraph reads, 2 University of Central Florida film students decided to make a horror movie in a documentary style. Daniel Myrick and Eduardo Sanchez used their credit cards to finance the $22,000 project. 3 unknown actors play college students who became lost in a Maryland woods while seeking the legendary Blair Witch. The murderous Blair Witch, which the audience never does get to see, lurks in the woods at night. The suspense and terror that the film created made this an amazingly compelling movie. The Blair Witch Project captured much attention at the Sundance Film Festival in Utah. Later, it was bought for $1.1 million. It soon became an international blockbuster, racking up $250 million in sales, making it the most profitable independent film in American history. All right, so let's take a look at some questions again. I encourage you to pause the video, answer these questions on your own first, and then come back and see how you did. So what is the topic? The topic seems to be at first about the 2 individuals, but it's actually about B, the Blair Witch Project movie. It's not talking about an actual legend of the Blair Witch. It's about the movie itself. What do most of the major details describe? Well, they're talking about how these two students made this movie, how much money they spent, what the premise was, how successful it became. For the bottom, I'm actually going to do 4, and that's going to answer question 3 for me. So if I look at number 4 first, which of the following sentences best states the main idea, whether it's directly stated in the paragraph or implied? If I look at my choices, the most general sentence there is D. 2 college film school students made a very successful horror movie, The Blair Witch Project, on a small budget. The rest of these are too specific. A doesn't even mention the name of the Blair Witch Project, neither does C, and so we know we can throw those out. But D is the most general. Now I can answer question 3. It's basically asking, is our main idea that we chose directly stated in this paragraph anywhere, or is it implied? And because that sentence itself does not appear word for word in the paragraph, it is B, implied, for number 3. All right, let's look at one more example before we start talking about central point. We're going to read about Vincent van Gogh. And I just want to show you real quickly. Hopefully you're kind of familiar with that image right there. This is one of Van Gogh's most famous paintings, so to give you some kind of context while we're reading about him. All right, Vincent van Gogh. At the age of 16, Vincent van Gogh worked for an art dealer and did sketching and watercolors as a hobby. Because he suffered from depression, he couldn't hold a job, so his brother Theo suggested that he take up a career in art. Van Gogh studied art and began painting in oils. Over the years, Van Gogh fell deeper into mental illness and had hallucinations. During an argument with painter Paul Gauguin, he cut off part of his own ear. Van Gogh went into a mental hospital for treatment, and there he painted The Starry Night. Van Gogh began to receive recognition as a painter, but his success did not improve his mental condition. He committed suicide at the age of 37, leaving behind some of the most celebrated paintings in history. All right, so what is our topic? Now, obviously, we know we're talking about Van Gogh, but they are talking about a specific niche about him, and it's not about his art. If you look and kind of look back at the details, you can see depression, mental illness, hallucinations, he cut off his ear, mental hospital, suicide. They are talking about C, his mental illness. That is what this paragraph is about. And so what are the major details describe? Well, kind of feeds right into that C, his mental illness. Again, I'm going to answer question 4 before I answer question 3 because 4 will answer question 3. Which of the following sentence best states the main idea, whether it's directly stated or implied? If I look at my 4 choices, we know they're talking about mental illness. C doesn't mention his mental illness, so I would throw that out. D is just kind of like the ending, so to speak. A is our best general sentence. Throughout his life, painter Vincent van Gogh struggled with mental illness. So A is our main idea. And now, if I look at my paragraph, that exact sentence does not appear anywhere, which means that is an implied main idea. We came to that conclusion using the details. All right, I'm going to head back to my PowerPoint because now we talked and reviewed main ideas that are implied. Now we're going to talk about central point. So, central point, and I will point out that this is often also, maybe more often, called thesis statements. So what I want to kind of get across is what's nice about this topic is that central points essentially have the same definition as main ideas. They summarize a piece of text. They are really general. However, the key thing is they are talking about selections that are longer than a paragraph. So articles or multiple paragraphs. So they're also called, as I mentioned, thesis statements or central ideas. And you still go through this same thought process. You still kind of have to be aware of the fact that it can be stated or implied just like a main idea. It's always a complete sentence, not a question, not a fragment, just like main ideas. And you still define the topic. Who or what is this article about? And what's the most general thing it's focusing on? Some tips on how to find the central point, depending on how long your article is. If you have maybe like a 5-paragraph article, this wouldn't be too bad. go through and find the main idea of each individual paragraph. Then looking at those together, that can help summarize what the whole article is about. Now, if you have like a 50-page article, for instance, that's really unreasonable. That would take forever to go through and try to find the main idea of each individual paragraph. So that's when maybe every couple paragraphs you just check in. Okay, what is this about? What are we focusing on? So again, the central point, also known as thesis, in definition is very similar to main idea. The main difference is thesis statements are talking about multiple paragraphs. Main ideas are just talking about one paragraph. So if I look back in our text, we are going to look at practice 7 over on page 275. Page 274 goes through again like the definition of thesis statement, so you can read that. All right, page 275, practice 7. I am going to ask that you go ahead and read that on your own, since it's 3 paragraphs, and then I will go over the answers. So again, go ahead and pause the video, read those 3 paragraphs, and then I'm going to go over the answers, because this is practicing the concept of main ideas, but then also central point. Okay, hopefully you have paused and you have resumed. So if you've read these 3 paragraphs, the topic, now mind you, they are talking about the topic of all 3 paragraphs. What is the topic of all 3 paragraphs? And if you look, they each are talking about some kind of designer. So number 1 is B, designers. Now number 2 wants us to focus just on the first paragraph, the main idea of the first paragraph. So if I kind of take a look back at that first paragraph, I know that they are talking about graphic designers. So I want to make sure that I'm focusing on graphic designers, which only A and C mention, and A is our most general sentence there. So A is our main idea of the first paragraph. Number 3 is just focusing on paragraph 3, which we know now brings in interior designers. So if I look at my options for number 3, D doesn't even mention interior designers, so I'm going to throw that out. Our main idea for number 3, paragraph 3, is A. Just defining what interior designers are. And finally, number 4, this is when we put it all together. What is the central point or the thesis of the entire selection? We cannot, for this one, choose a specific type of designer. So we have to throw B out because B only focuses on industrial designers. A only focuses on graphic designers, so we have to throw that one out. So we're already down to C and D. We already said back in number 1 that designers was our main topic. So in number 4, if you look, C is our most general main idea that we have. So C is our main idea of the entire selection, also known as thesis statement. So that is our thesis. It ties all 3 paragraphs together. So if I looked at C and I kind of just reevaluated my paragraphs, that does in fact fit back. You know, that is a nice summarizing statement that fits with all 3 of those paragraphs. All right, now I'm going to ask that you, in our course, Chapter 7 is open. I'm going to have you click in Chapter 7. And I'm going to have you go ahead and get that text sheet out. You'll see it's listed Chapter 7 text sheet, and it's right there. So it's, you don't have to click into anything necessarily. It's right there. You just click on it. Go ahead and open that up for me, because we're going to go ahead and do Part A together right now. So we're going to do Part A together. And this is going to have us practicing thesis statement with a particular reading from our textbook. So, let me get back into our textbook here. We're going to go to page 379. Page 379. I'm going to have you go ahead and pause the video and read this 3-paragraph article, and then we're going to answer the questions together. Okay, I'm going to hope that you paused and read, and now we're going to go ahead and answer these questions together. And these will go on your text sheet. Again, I know now that we're all online, we're going to be doing a lot of like clicking back and forth, but we are in practice A right here, page 279, practice A. These are the questions we'll be answering and putting on our text sheet. All right, number 1, what is the topic? Our topic of all 3 of those paragraphs, yes, there are pyramids, but more specifically, they are the Egyptian pyramids. So, number 1 is C. Number 1 is C. Question 2 wants to know about just the second paragraph. So if you look back at the second paragraph, right here, it wants to know the topic, sentence, or main idea of the second paragraph. If you look through your options, it is A. Egyptian pyramids typically contained a temple that was constructed a short distance from the pyramid and connected by a causeway. That is our main idea for paragraph 2. So number 2 is A. Okay, we have to click over to get the other couple questions. And so I will get the paragraph right on the screen and I'll read the questions. You can kind of not have to click back and forth. Question 3 wants to know the topic sentence of the third paragraph. The topic sentence of the third paragraph. So if you want to look at the third paragraph again. If you are looking hopefully at the options, you will see that our topic sentence is A. The 3 pyramids at Giza have a carefully planned layout. And then question 4, if you are looking at question 4, I will keep the reading on my screen. What is the central point of the whole selection? So now it's asking you to put all 3 of those paragraphs together. Our best central point is B, that Egypt's pyramids, the oldest existing buildings in the world, also rank among the world's largest structures. So if we are back on our text sheet, number 1, C. Number 2, A. Number 3, A. And number 4, B. Okay, so that is part A of our text sheet. The next thing I want to do is I'm going to pull up this article, and I know at first it's going to look funky. I did that on purpose because I did not want you to see something that would kind of give away. Now, this is fairly short. I'm going to go ahead and read it. As I read, I'm going to model how I would go about trying to find a thesis of a selection. Now, I specifically took the topic, the title, and an intro paragraph off of here to not give away what the potential thesis is, but I'm still going to model how I would do this. All right, and the things in the middle are the headings of subsections here. Okay, in high school, you likely submitted at least 1 or 2 assignments per week for every course, each of which was reviewed by your instructor and applied to your overall grade in class. Larger assignments may have been divided into smaller components. For example, submitting a rough draft or peer editing another student's work may have garnered points if completed on time. These are some helpful tips on organizing your notes. In college, you will find that not all work counts toward your grade. In fact, it is not uncommon for certain assignments to go without review. College students are responsible for their own learning and understanding of the course objectives. Therefore, assignments may be given to help you master the material outside of class, but your instructor will not always collect them. Frequently, your grades will be based upon exams and major papers only, and your homework is simply a guide to prepare you for those. Okay, so I'm going to pause. So far, it seems like this paragraph is talking about like work that you're submitting in high school and how that goes into your grade. And then this one seems to be talking about in college how you might be doing homework, but it might not count for much or a little bit, but then your big grades come upon like exams and papers. All right, so that's kind of what I'm getting so far, is talking about grading high school and then college. All right, so let's look at the next section. Different standards of grades. Okay. As a college student, you should most certainly strive for success in your classes. Most of your courses will require that you earn a grade of C or higher for them to apply towards your major. This may be different from your high school experience, where a grade of D is often considered passing. It is important to be aware of the specific grading policies for both your college and your major. Ultimately, if your grades are not meeting the required academic standards, your graduation plans will be negatively impacted. If you are struggling in a class, take help from a tutor, faculty member, or academic advisor and develop strategies to set you on the path to success. Okay, so now they're talking about like your grade, how you have to have in college, oftentimes you have to have like a C or higher. In our class, a B or higher. But then in high school, it didn't seem to, I don't want to say not matter, but you could get away with a D in high school. All right. So I think I'm seeing a pattern here. So that's kind of what you want to pay attention to when you have an article that's more than a paragraph. You want to look to see what's tying them together. For me, it's high school, college. High school, college. They're talking about high school and college. All right, last little bit. Extra credit opportunities in high school are abundant. In college, on the other hand, few extra credit opportunities will be afforded, which ensures consistency and fairness in grading. If you have become accustomed to second chances while in high school, try your best to break this habit. The grades you receive in college are intended to directly reflect your success and mastery of a particular course or subject. Navigating the differences between high school and college grading policies and procedures can be challenging at first, but it is still possible to earn high marks in your college courses through hard work and careful time management. If you have questions about your grade in a class or in a particular assignment, you should speak with your instructor immediately for clarification. His or her guidance can help you make better sense of college grading now and in the future. All right, so I definitely know that they are looking at high school and college, and it appears to be kind of like a compare-contrast situation. So if I were writing a thesis statement on this, that seems to be talking about grading in particular, I would say something like, you all know how I love there are many, there are several, but that really sums it up. There are many differences between high school and college. There are several differences. So if I kind of uncover what I originally hid here, it kind of gives you like what they would have used as their thesis statement. But that's what I'm talking about with a thesis statement. You look and see, okay, what's the theme that's running through all of these? What's tying them all together? And then you summarize it in one sentence that could be used to summarize all of those. I couldn't have just picked saying, oh, in high school you get extra credit, in college you don't. All right, while that's true, that's only this part of it. There's more to this than just extra credit. So you can't just choose like one piece of the article. You have to cover it all. In Blackboard, I'm going to recommend in Chapter 7, you'll see there is a thesis practice. Thesis practice number 1. It will open up into an article. Again, it's not terribly long, about 3 pages. I'm going to recommend, I'm not requiring it, you will have a thesis homework next, I think I'm going to send it Wednesday. You will have a thesis homework, but this is just for practice right now. If you would want to go ahead and read this article, and then send me an email and make the heading, thesis practice, and give me the thesis. So I can give you some feedback, just like I would do in class if we were doing this in practice sessions. I will give you some feedback on, yeah, you're on the right track, or think about doing it this way. That way we can still get that interaction and still get that practice. All right, turning back to our textbook, we are now going to get our vocabulary from our first reading. So if you turn to look at page 281, your study guide is in here. I also already uploaded my completed study guide, so if you wanted to just pull that up, you are welcome to. Or if you like to type in or print out, whatever you like to do that makes more sense for you as you go through. So you will see that not all of our vocabulary words will appear on our text sheet. That's okay. Or excuse me, in our reading here, I will go over all of them at some point. All right, so I'm going to go over the ones that are on our text sheet. Number 1, you know what? I'm just going to pull up the text sheet here. Number 1, while waiting for the nurse to insert the IV into my arm, I steeled myself for the pain. Steeled in paragraph 17 means to brace yourself. It's D on the textbook, to get ready, to make yourself brave, to kind of work yourself up to do something. Okay, number 2. Our high school history teacher would say it is irony that Juan graduated from college with a degree in history since he always skipped his high school history class. The word irony is in paragraph 7, and it's basically like the opposite of what you expect. You think one thing's going to happen, well, the exact opposite occurs instead. I'm skipping down to number 4 now. When Juan saw how upset his wife was over denting the car, his anger dissipated. His anger dissipated. He saw she was angry, so his anger dissipated. It means to become less. So it kind of like started to disappear, to go down. Number 6, I was dumbfounded when I discovered that I had the winning lottery ticket to the $100,000 jackpot. Now, if you found out that you won the lottery, you might also be dumbfounded in paragraph 18, meaning you're speechless. You're so shocked you cannot speak. You don't know what to say. Number 7, knowing there were a few prospects for acting jobs in a small town like Garland, Nebraska, Giovanni decided to move to LA. So the word prospect means opportunities. Something that could happen in the future. You all are going to have some job prospects, things that could happen in the future. Number 9, Sandra took some medicine and laid down on the sofa for an hour to alleviate her migraine headache. Alleviate, if you think of the pain medication, Aleve, it's like to decrease or to relieve, to lessen the severity of. Often has to do with pain, but it can also be like, oh, I'm really stressed. I need to alleviate this stress. I need to decrease this stress. All right, and then number 10, even though she was tired, Heather reluctantly agreed to work an extra shift at the restaurant to cover for her friend. If you are reluctant to do something, you don't really want to do it. It's, you're kind of unwilling to do it, but you do it anyway. You have some hesitation while doing it. All right, now, in the selection itself, you will see the word qualm in paragraph 17. Qualm means having a fear or doubt about something. We right now might have some qualms about what's going on. We might have some fear or doubt about, are we doing the right thing? Are we not doing the right thing? So that's what a qualm is. Also, you will see in the selection the word shoddy. Not like, hey, shoddy, it's your birthday. Guys, I have to keep myself entertained, right? I'm all by myself here. Shoddy in paragraph 26 means low quality. I often use the word shitty to describe this word because that's what it means. Low quality, not having a lot of worth, maybe some shoddy carpentry, some shoddy, in this case she talks about a shoddy apartment, not very good quality. And then the word conflicts. It means like when something interferes with something else. That could actually be like two people getting into a conflict, or maybe you have two different things going on at the same time. They conflict in terms of time. All right. Those are the vocabulary words for your very first reading in this particular chapter. So, again, if you want to pause the video, however you are kind of navigating this, I will recommend that you go ahead and read, starting on page 282, all right, at the bottom of the page. She is an award-winning actress, Marcia Gay Harden. So you will read her story about like a time in her life where she had to make some difficult choices. And then we're going to answer some questions together, specifically a couple that will go on your text sheet. So again, if you want to pause the video and then go ahead and read this article, and then we'll come back together and we will go over the questions. All right, hopefully you have now resumed, or maybe you haven't, and I just sound silly. All right, so as you read this article, there were 27 paragraphs. Hopefully you could tell that the topic of the article was C, a tough decision that Marcia had to make. It wasn't just about her career or this role. It was this tough decision. She was really conflicted about making this decision between, going for this movie part or playing Snow White for this young girl. Number 2, the central point or thesis of the entire article. We know it's about Marcia Gay Harden, so her name has to appear, so A is already thrown out. But we know it's talking about her kind of like the choice she had to make. So I would say the best option there, or the best answer there, is B. She gave up an opportunity for a role in a movie to play Snow White to a dying girl. That was really what she went through. That was the whole thing, is how she had this really hard decision to make, because it was kind of basically her career, she thought at the time, her career, or, holding this promise. And so that was difficult for her. All right. We're going to skip over to question number 5. And again, we will get here on our text sheet part B. I'll let you know when it's time. Question 5, why did Marcia believe she was meant to be an actress? So we're making some inferences here. Hopefully you answer D. She just felt something special. She knew, like she just kind of felt like she was where she needed to be. All right, number 7, this is going on your text sheet. I don't know why this won't scroll with me. The implied main idea of paragraph 3. I'm going to reread paragraph 3 to you while you look at the options. One day as I was finishing up a long, hard lunch shift, I found myself in a particularly upbeat mood. The famous director Oliver Stone was coming to town to do a casting call for his upcoming movie, Born on the 4th of July, the story of paralyzed Vietnam War vet Ron Kovac. The call was just for crowd scene extras, but I didn't care. The way I figured Oliver Stone would notice me, pull me out of the lineup, and lo and behold, I'd have my big break. So if you're reading the options while I read that, the implied main idea of that particular paragraph was that C. She thought she was going to have her big break with this casting director. So that is what you are going to type or write on part B, number 7, page 286, C. All right. Now we're going to skip over a couple pages to the short answer questions. So we kind of already answered question 1, what she felt like she was meant to be there. But on your text sheet, you are paying particular attention to question number 2. Question number 2 says, why do you think Marcia decided to go through with her decision to play Snow White? And this is opinion, so type or write what you believe. Maybe it had something to do with guilt or holding promises, or maybe in the back of her head she knew she would get another chance, whatever. Why do you think she decided to go through with her decision to play Snow White? That is what you were answering for number 2. Okay. Again, always feel free to pause and pick up and do what you need to do as we move forward. Okay, we are now going to go to our second reading on page 290. This is a reading about Tim Burton, and hopefully that name sounds familiar, maybe. He has done The Nightmare Before Christmas, Frankenweenie, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. He's a big-time director. So we're going to get our words from here. I'm going to pull my study guide up so I can have them talk about them while I go. All right, back of the study guide. Number 1, one of Tasha's best attributes is that she always thinks positively in every situation. Attribute is just a characteristic. So like a quality that someone has. Maybe they're kind, they're flexible, they're dependable. Attribute is a quality or a characteristic. Number 2, most parents have unconditional love for their children. They will love them no matter what offenses their children commit. Unconditional in paragraph 6 means without any hesitation. It is guaranteed. I'm not going to stop loving you. Number 4, Julia uses an economy of lines when she draws, but you can still tell what the image represents. So economy in this case means less of something or careful management of. So right now we might be using an economy of money. We're paying attention to it. We're not using too much of something. So economy means to be very careful to not use too much of something. Number 5, Crystal likes to create her own animation videos featuring funny characters. Animation, probably you're thinking just like I am, like cartoons. Yeah, motion to non-living things. Art form that gives life, moving characters in paragraph 2. Number 6, the students in my multimedia class all collaborated on an animated film about penguins. If you are collaborating with people in paragraph 3, you're working together. You are working together. Number 8, artist sketches translate to realistic three-dimensional characters in the animation. In this case, translate, I know we normally think of this as languages, but in this case, they're talking about like to transform. Maybe we're going from clay to animation. We're going from writing on paper to a different medium. So it's going from one medium to another, not just language-wise. Number 10, this technique has never been replicated by any other artist because it is too difficult to copy. So replicated means to copy, to reproduce, to repeat, duplicate something. All right, the ones that are just in the selection that weren't in this particular multiple choice, miniatures in paragraph 8 means small sculptures or figures. We know what a miniature is, right? Just a small version of something. Accurately means done with great care or correctly. And then exaggerated means to overly emphasize, maybe add some extra details. We've talked about this, like a meaning of this word before, to overemphasize something. So exaggerate. Okay, so again, I'll ask that you kind of pause and do the reading. So it's an interview mostly. It's kind of like an overview of Tim Burton. So you'll read this, go through the interviews, and then we will come back together to do the questions. Okay, hopefully you have now read the, oops, I'm going back and forth too much here. Read the article. We're going to answer a couple questions together. So if you're looking at your text sheet, we're going to answer question 1, but you don't have to fill out until number 7. But we're going to look at number 1. It says, what's the central point of this article? This was 18 paragraphs. So we know this is about Tim Burton. So we could throw out C and D. So we're left with A and B. The central point of the whole article is B. He talks about his passion, his creativity, and that is really what helped him be successful. We are then going to go ahead and just go right to number 7. It's going to go on your text sheet. From the article, you can conclude that Tim Burton feels his success is due to, and then I'm going to have you fill out number 7, page 296. You thought I was going to give you the answer, didn't you? So go ahead and answer number 7 on page 296. And then when you're ready, you're going to click over to page 298. And on your text sheet, you are answering question 4. Why do you think so many successful people advise others to follow their passion in life? So again, this is an opinion, but you're going to put your response right there. Why do you think so many successful people advise others to follow their passion in life? Okay, so that is just about all for our Monday, March 23rd video. Just a couple, recap reminders. Due tonight by 10 o'clock p.m., tonight meaning Monday, March 23rd, is your Chapter 6 vocabulary quiz. There's the Dropbox right here in Chapter 6. Please make sure you submit that. We did work through some of Chapter 7, but we did not finish it, and you do not have to finish it quite yet. We will talk more about Chapter 7 on Wednesday, March 25th's video. We will finish the text sheet together. I will also talk to you more about your Chapter 7 vocabulary quiz, as well as some thesis work. Last but not least, make sure you are getting into mastery skills. My goal is to get a video going through at least one of those skills uploaded very soon so that can help you. Okay, hope you're all doing well. Talk to you soon.